Hello and welcome to MGSM. Welcome to Macquarie Business School. My name is Lan Snell. I'm the Academic Program Director. This is part of our Q&A series or live events. So this is a very special segment, in fact, designed specifically for our prospective students. And because this segment is for our prospective students, we've invited 4 of our current students to share with you their experiences to date, the reasons why they considered and indeed chose the Global MBA, and what their experience has been to date. We're now term 2. This is our second term offering. The degree went live in May this year. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is also let you know that there are about 75 people who've registered for this event. This is broadcast live from Sydney, Australia. It will be, as always, available as a recording for those who are unable to pick up the recording at their own leisure. So we have a fantastic panel. Let me just go through our 4 current students with us today. First of all, we got in person Michael from Sydney. We're in Sydney, Australia at the moment. So Michael, and I'll let everyone introduce themselves in a minute. We've got Christy, who is based in Singapore. We have Hannah, who is based in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam. And we also have Simon. Actually, Simon, where are you based today? Because you do a bit of travelling. So where are you based today?
Yeah, I'm in Melbourne.
You're in Melbourne today. Okay, yes. So we've got a good spread. Now, also 3 of our students, and I'll let them explain where they are in their journey, have been with us since the beginning of time, which is really in term 3. So they've already experienced the first term. And Simon is probably the newest student in that he began his journey in this present term. So let me kick the ball off with Michael.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And before you do, Michael, and this is an organic conversation, so we want it to be very casual and informal, and I very much encourage all questions and comments. Post them in, and where appropriate, the students will actually address them, and as will I. So, Michael, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lan, and thanks for the opportunity to speak about the Global MBA. As Lan said, we are students, and I'm a student who started last term with 2 subjects, and I've started the next term. I'm currently doing 2 subjects now. In fact, for a few of the students here today, I think we actually have assignments due. So we're very
no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure whatsoever. But I thought I'd talk about why I chose to do the MBA in the first place, and also why I'm continuing to do the MBA. So I chose to do the Global MBA. I boiled it down to 3 categories. That was the school, the cost, and the big question mark for me, which was online learning. So with the school, I did my research and I realized that according to, I think it was the Financial Times, Macquarie Business School / MGSM was really successful. It had a really good international reputation. In terms of cost, the Global MBA is really, really competitive in comparison to other Sydney-related MBAs. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but certainly in Sydney. And the big question for me was online learning. So school was fine, the cost was really good, but online learning, am I going to get the same outcomes and the same level of learning as I would with in-class learning? I actually had a bad experience at another Australian university where the online learning was basically an internal course just put online. I'm really pleased to say that in the 4 subjects, the 2 subjects I've done and the 2 subjects I'm currently doing, the online learning is really, really good. And in fact, I would say it rivals in-person learning. So we use Zoom, which is, I think, what everyone's using now to view this through. And it's actually, initially you rock up to your first tutorial with your lecturer and you sort of think, okay, all right, there's 20 or 30 of us here. I'll just listen to what they have to say. And before you know it, your lecturer is actually calling on you to answer questions or breaking you into groups to discuss issues, and then calling on you again to talk about them. So
and interrupting you,
interrupting you
right now.
or asking if you've done your readings or whatever it may be. And you get to ask questions back, obviously, and it's just like being in a tutorial at a university, but I would argue it's actually probably more interactive because you're more accountable, I think. So that online aspect is really good, but for me, the absolute biggest driver and best part of the online learning is the content. So the Coursera app and the broken down videos, the 5-minute, really good quality, concentrated videos, which the lecturers put up, are a really good way to learn. So It's not a 2-hour recording of a lecture in a drafty hall. I'm not sure if the prospective students here have actually looked at the Coursera course yet, the free courses that are available, but they're really high quality condensed versions of learning, which you have to stop every 10 seconds to break down and actually learn the content from. But it's a really good system of learning. So that's why I chose to do the MBA. Why I'm continuing to do the MBA is, and I didn't expect this to eventuate immediately, but it actually occurred within the first term. I was implementing the readings and the learnings from the first courses immediately at work. I didn't expect to be, but I was made manager of a small team early this year, but after I started the Global MBA, and I was actually able to implement aspects like key capability checklists within my opening week or two. If I didn't have that learnings, I think I would have been struggling a bit more. And also conflict resolution's been really good too, as well as other exercises, real practical tips I've actually learned through the MBA. So that's why I'm continuing to do it. And the reasons before are why I originally chose it.
That's pretty comprehensive, and I dare say that the other students here will be able to build on that. And they may also have other reasons, but if not, please, feel free to share. I'm going to go to Christy right now. So, Christy, would you mind unmuting yourself, and would you like to share your experience with the group?
Yeah, sure. Look, I echo a lot of what Michael has said already. I 100% agree with his thoughts around the content and the way it's delivered, and I think it's brilliant. For me, I had actually looked at doing an MBA a couple of years ago when I was actually living in Sydney, and I had been to an information night with MGSM at the time, and it just didn't quite work out for me. The timing wasn't quite right, and there was a few things happening. And so I didn't pursue it at the time, but I remained on the mailing list, and now I'm working in Singapore. I've been here for a couple of years. And when this popped up, I was like, okay, this is really interesting, because I'd actually looked at schools in Singapore because for me, the school was particularly important. I wanted to get something that was good quality and highly recognised. And I'd looked at a couple of schools in Singapore, but because of my job, and I travel a lot for work, and I have a job that's spread sort of regionally across Asia, there's not necessarily a guarantee that I will remain in Singapore for the next number of years. And so there was that question in my mind of, okay, if I start this in Singapore, how easily then can I move to another school if that needs to be the case? So when this came up, I was like, okay, this is perfect. It's a school that I was already interested in. It has a great reputation of high quality learning. And that it's something that's far more portable than traditional education models. So for me, it was a bit of a no-brainer to sort of express my interest. I was a little bit apprehensive at first. It's been a while since I've studied formally, and I was a little bit unsure as to whether I could manage the rigours of academic study again after quite a long break. And fit it into my lifestyle as well. As I say, I do travel a lot for work. Obviously, being here in Singapore, I'm on a different time zone to Sydney. I think the timing of the lectures and webinars and stuff is good, but I think the flexibility that it is online, that everything's recorded, that if you aren't able to attend in person, you still are able to get a very high quality experience, even if you aren't able to dial in for every single webinar. So for me, it's been brilliant so far. Similar to Michael, I started last term, so I did one subject initially to see, how much time is this going to take, and really wanted to be able to dedicate the right amount of time to it, and didn't want to overcommit myself too early. But this term I've taken on 2 subjects, but I've been able to balance that with a fairly rigorous work schedule as well. So yeah, I think it's been fantastic.
Great. Thank you so much, Christy. Just before we move on to Hannah, if I could just recap on a common observations that both Michael and Christy raised. And I do think this is a really important point, and that is the global transportability of the MBA, and the business school reputation is really important for professionals. Indeed, we all experience ties. We all operate in the same sort of market here. And it is really important differentiators to who you're associated with as a business school. So Michael mentioned earlier clear that the FT Financial Times ranking is an important ranking for MBAs. It does differentiate. There are hundreds of business schools in the world, so that we've just got a bit of a quantitative measure here. In Australia, there are at least 42 providers. And each provider provides pretty much an MBA as a flagship of a business school. We, Macquarie Business School, MGSM, Global MBA, our reputation is within the top 3 in Australia and comes in at number 74 in the world. So within the top 100 FT ranked business schools in the world. So this is your comparative index, right? What this means, why this is important is particularly for an employer's perspective. So your next conversation with promotion opportunities, your career directory, if you switch careers, it will follow you, and this will be part of your value proposition. So I do think that is a really important dimension when considering a business school. Let's now move on to Hannah from Ho Chi Minh. Hannah, welcome. Please share your experience with us.
Thank you, Lan. Hello, everybody. I'm actually one of the full-time students on this Global MBA program. I decided, even before the term start, I decided to take 1 to 2 years off from this MBA program. And I came across this Global MBA program quite coincidentally when I met Lan at one of the events here in Ho Chi Minh City and got inspired into how this whole online learning can actually work in real life. So that was a great start. When I actually joined the program, I was impressed in terms of how the professors, while we don't get to meet them face to face, they really, really support us well in our individual learning. We get to meet them every week on the webinar. We can also write to them and talk to them and chat to them if we have any questions. So the support has been amazing from the Macquarie Business School side. In terms of the content of the learning, I have actually stopped working, but a lot of learning here actually resolved a lot of my challenges in my past working life. For example, I would struggle to find meaning in my own work, but thanks to a course here that talk about creating meaning for people at work, that actually helped me very personally. And another I had when I was working is actually engaging the board directors in my ex-companies. And here in the program, I look forward to another course that is called Engaging the Board, because it's really addressing the real challenge that I think businessmen and women will face on a day-to-day basis when we reach certain rank in our career.
Yeah. Thank you. And I know that your background, Hannah, is an ex-management consultant yourself, and within the human talent space. So it's great that you're able to contribute that level of experience to the cohort. So thank you very much. We're going to now move to our final student, and that is Simon. Before we do, though, I just want to cap on a few things there that Hannah mentioned. I hope that you can appreciate that just with the 4 students that we've got representing our cohort, which numbers close to 70 for the first intake, immediately you will see diversity. So it's no mistake, it is no coincidence that we've got 2 females and 2 males that are representing our cohort. Always a balance is important. That is one of the key priority areas for me. I always seek that diversity in any representation. Understanding that the design principle behind the Global MBA is one on diversity, accessibility and inclusion. So everything we do, everything we say and how we manifest that has to be represented in what we do. So this is just one example of that, and that is through our cohort. So our cohort is a lovely balance between, okay, it could always be 50-50 in terms of error respect, but it's a good goal to get to. So we're about 70-30 in terms of male-female representation. The average age is 38. We have got, fairly young but very experienced people all the way through to very seasoned people. So it's fantastic. So the average number of years experience is 13 years. So that should give you a very clear indication of the wealth of experience that the cohort brings to the table. That is really important because you learn not only through the academics who are, obviously leaders in their field or their discipline, but also through your fellow colleagues. So I hope that gives you a good indication of the quality of the cohort. So now I turn to you, Simon, as our final student I can't speak this afternoon, right? Because I've had back-to-back meetings. Student representation. So Simon, please share your story.
Yeah, thanks, Lan. So currently, I'm in Melbourne, based working in a digital analytics space. So I was pretty lucky to come across this program online. So I did a few Coursera online studies but to be honest, I didn't finish all of them. So this one is actually a really good one that allows me to be motivated and be able to interact with other students. So we got 4 students here. We are based in different cities, but we can still communicate online through Slack and also Zoom. So that's pretty important for me to be flexible. Lan mentioned that a few weeks ago, I was in Sydney, so I was still able to study when I was on the airplane, just download all the videos on my iPad. So I can still study or in the lounge and just chat online with the other students. So that's definitely one of the key aspects I really appreciate for this Global MBA program. And another thing is the content of the course. So currently we have all different aspects that I wasn't really working on previously. I come from very analytics background. So currently I'm doing a subject in leadership. So that's something that I probably didn't have much exposure previously. So it allows me to learn so much that outside of my current work scope. So it's pretty good content-wise and also flexibility-wise. Definitely a great program for me in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, okay, that's a good start, right? So we're halfway through your first term, so it's really good insights there. I just want to talk a bit more, and now I will encourage our questions and comments and also other comments that our students may have on this. A couple of things that you mentioned, particularly Simon Michael mentioned at the front end, that the myths related or to the perceptions around online learning. I would like to tackle this one on the head, because this is really one of the most frequently asked questions that we get. I don't know about you guys, but that surely must have been a concern in the back of your head when considering an online version of an MBA versus an on-campus or face-to-face version. And I'd like to open this discussion up by saying this is not about one being better than the other. This is about an and model rather than an or model. And I think that's really important, because really when we're looking at the labour market right now, we're looking at providing people with choice. People are guided by their own personal and or professional interests, and also delivery mode is important to how they consume that level of service. And so clearly for all 4 people here and 70 other people in the current cohort, the mechanism to able to access material online when they want and how they want is a really important differentiator. Because let's face it, we're all kind of busy working full-time roles. Probably people have families to sort of balance out as well. And so really the only way that they can actually have the opportunity to complete their MBA is through an online model. And that is this, and the Global MBA has come onto the market with that sort of need in mind. But with that comes with a bunch of perceptions related to online learning, and how good is that online learning going to be? Because really we're entering a fairly much of an unregulated market. We know out there that there's a lot of private providers. We also know that there's a lot of learning platforms coming onto the market with competing products. And that's good. Competition is to be desired, is always to be encouraged. But with competition, I always urge people to look at the quality behind that product, okay? And so then it begs the question, what is quality? I'm going to ask that question of the panels to our students today. What does quality mean to you when we're thinking about online learning? What does that look like? Michael, would you like to respond to that as a first take?
Sure. I think quality when it comes to online learning, this might be a weird concept, is for me is A to Z. So okay. It means that the lectures are really good, but it also means the testing and the assignments are really good. Mm-hmm. So when I've done it before, it's been really patchy. So like I said, the lectures were 2 hours, but the slides were okay. But the assessments or the testing was cut and paste from other sources, which you can quite easily find online. Yeah. So for me, it's the whole package. Mm-hmm. And so I think Simon mentioned it before. He downloads all his stuff before he gets in a plane, then watches it. That accessibility is so helpful, yes. And you only get that with a really good A to Z package. So yeah, that's what I look for.
Good. Any Christy or Hannah or Simon? May go to Hannah first.
Yeah, I just want to add on that for me, when I realized that the quality of the program is when I speak to people, especially my ex-colleague, they get to see a different perspective, a different mindset from Hannah. And that's when I know I actually learn and apply these things in my day-to-day conversations with people. And I think that's one of the best test to know that you have learned from the program.
Okay, good, thank you. What about you, Christy?
Yeah, I would echo the points that Michael made. Like, I think it's, you know, it's important sort of end to end for it to work and for it to all be cohesive. And you know, I was a little bit sort of, I guess, nervous to start with about, okay, how would this work in terms of making me accountable and making sure that I was doing all the work that I needed to do if I wasn't, you know, having to turn up to a classroom, you know, every day or whatnot. And for me, it's actually worked really well. And as I mentioned, I travel a lot. And you know, Simon mentioned, you know, downloading materials. My first 10 days of study, I was actually in Africa, and I was in a spot where there was no Wi-Fi, there was no mobile reception. And so I was actually able to download all the content before I got on the plane, and I had it all there, and I was still able to you know, do all the activities and all the learnings, you know, while I was away. And I sort of plan my weeks out often by, okay, I need to fly to Hong Kong on this day. I'm going to be on a flight for 3+ hours. I can, you know, watch videos during that time. I can, you know, do these readings during that time. And it's all in that sort of, well, a lot of it's in that sort of bite-sized pieces where, you know, you're not necessarily having to sit for an hour and watch a recorded lecture where, you know, you might start to drift off halfway through. It's really, you know, targeted, specific, and yeah, it's very well structured. I would say extremely well structured. And yeah, the quality of the content is you know, I think I had faith in the quality of the content because it was coming from Macquarie Business School, but it certainly hasn't disappointed me at all.
Yeah, great points. I'll also ask Simon to contribute something, your thoughts as well. But before I do, I just want to build on the bite-sized sort of nature of it. The actual curriculum itself, so that you have an insight. I mean, you guys are seeing the end product, right? Let me just share with you what's happened in the development phase to bring you this new curriculum. It's no small feat to be able for a business school to say, you know what, we're going to actually introduce a new program. Okay, so when we say we're going to introduce a new program, a whole bunch of activities in the back end has to happen. This is a newly created curriculum, so this is being created from the ground up. This is not a repackaged product that we've got to the market here. So when we say developed from the ground up, it means that we actually have had to appoint each academic, design the actual curriculum, and you know how we designed it is around the future focused capabilities. The language was particularly important because it had to address what industry understood those capabilities and what they're seeking for the experienced hires market. So it had to be completely aligned with industry expectations on this one here. So this meant a distinct departure from a siloed offering in terms of a curriculum, as in marketing, accounting, finance, to a more integrated curriculum, really reflecting those key future-focused capabilities that everyone is seeking for right now. This does not mean to suggest for 1 minute that we do not cover the traditional bases of what makes an organisation function. Indeed, we just do that in a different way. So we integrate that package in a very much more applied manner. So how this is manifested is that we have representations across the landscape, right from the big end of town, right through to the micro startup. So it is relevant. Those metrics do matter to all, and that is important to us. But getting back to that whole bite-sized things, it takes, it's much harder to present, say, 3, 5 to 8 minute videos than what it would to get up and talk for 2 hours. You know, and for people to nod off, and including the actual lecturer. So the actual scripting process, the production process behind this beast that we've got is quite, it's probably 90% of the work is done right in the back end to present this very polished thing. And the reason why we've invested so much time in that back end is because it's not just because we're a reputable business school that has our assurance of learning on the line here. It's because the first people that are going to look at our product is actually not our students, it's our competitors as well. So we've got to make sure that what we present to the market is absolutely spot on. And so the rigor involved in there, I just want you to appreciate that it's just no accident that these things happen. Those bite sizes, there's a lot of science behind it, a lot of pedagogy, understanding how people learn, why people learn, and how people learn the way they do learn is important, all integrated in this format that we present to you. So hopefully you can appreciate that, and I know you do. Anyway, Simon, I know that you've got some contributions to make in terms of what you believe quality to be like, so please share your comments.
Yeah, thanks, Lan. So to extent of what Hannah, Michael, and Christy just mentioned, for me, I also think the diversity of the learning experience is really good. So other than online videos, there's also chat forums. You can post your questions. There's Slack channel. You can have live chat with other students, and also, of course, Zoom, which we're doing now, sort of bring that interperson elements into the study. So not just the readings, all the inputs you can get from the study. You can also discuss all the questions we have with other students. So that's definitely a really good quality of learning for me.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more personal, as we said earlier. I mean, I love the fact that we're sitting here face to face and we're interacting with, as we mentioned earlier, 3 other students located in different parts of the world, which again is representative of how we work, right? Michael, you were here when we had the launch night in Sydney a few weeks ago, and I don't know if you recall, but Stephanie Fay, who is the CEO of Austrade, delivered a keynote presentation. She mentioned specifically about the global realities of working with colleagues all around the world zones. I mean, that's the reality that we're working with our cohort. How is it like interacting and working as a group with colleagues who are located in different time zones? Is it challenging for you?
Well, it's something I had never done before, and something I just assumed was a nice version of Skype. And then what I realized was that's not the case at all, and it takes effort. But it's really, really good. The first 10 minutes of the first webinar, you kind of get used to the technical side of it and speaking to someone across the other side of the world. But before you realize it, you're with these people every single week in discussing your subject, and you're fleshing out ideas, and it becomes seamless. But it probably takes 10, 20 minutes to get used to initially. But no, it's very easy to get and easy to understand, but it's a good learning process, but in itself, it's just worthwhile doing from a business perspective, because I'd never done it before. So yeah, no. And I remember that speech from Stephanie, and she talked about how it was this course was so global focused, and how in a competitive sense, many universities aren't like that.
Yeah.
And if I could make a comment about how you restructured all the subjects, in fact, you didn't restructure them, you rebuilt them.
Yeah.
I actually think that the names of the subjects and the segmentations that they're in, so I think there's like
6.
6, sorry. Yeah. I actually think that basically reads like a CV from 2020. And so once I've done the course, I'll eventually adapt that to make it look like that. I think it's something that I will absolutely, be building on as soon as I am ready to transition or to whatever I need to do. So.
I'm really smiling when you say that, Michael, because one of our industry advisory board members, when we actually presented a proposed curriculum, sat back and he said, that's just the KPIs for what we do for our team, right there. So, and so when you talk about this represents your value proposition, it absolutely does, your menu of capabilities that you've got. So that's fantastic. I actually note that we've got a couple of questions in as well. I'm wondering, Christy, I mean, you're currently doing 1 to 2 subjects per semester, and the question from Kim is that she would like the panel to share their experience. She's got here, I'm excited to be starting in September, so we're excited to have you in September, Kim, and curious about the panel's experience and insights into balancing 1 or 2 subjects per semester. So Kim, are you comfortable in taking this question on?
Sure, yes, absolutely. As I mentioned, I only enrolled in 1 subject the first term, just to test the waters and really see how I could balance that with my lifestyle. And I found it to be, if anything, it made me more organised. It made me conscious that I needed to plan my week very clearly and have a bit of contingency built in for, if things go wrong. And that worked out really well. And so I picked up 2 subjects for this term. And obviously the workload is much heavier, but it's still manageable. I mean, I work a full-time job and quite a demanding job. As I mentioned, lots of travel. But so far it's been totally manageable. You just have to be very organised, and And when they say it's a sprint, the terms are 6 weeks. You need to be at the start line with your shoes on and your laces done up on that first day, and be ready to go, because it is demanding, but it's certainly doable. You just need to be organised and need to keep up. I think that's kind of critical. It's certainly manageable with a full-time job, and if you've got family and other commitments, it's still doable. But you just need to be organised is my advice.
That's right. Simon, I'm wondering if you would like to share any thoughts. I mean, you're in week 3 as you've had 2 full weeks and you're about to do your first assessment, but how is that workload panning out for you with a full-time load as well?
Yes, so similar to Christy, so my job is full-time. It's quite demanding as well from time to time. I'm currently only doing one subject, so I don't want to overload myself. On average, I probably spend about 6 to 10 hours per week of study just for one subject. So pretty much the whole Sunday afternoon, I dedicated that time just to do my readings and online videos. And I can even watch videos when I'm on public transport as well. And also, if I got really good downtime at night, I tend to just do more readings and write my assignments. So definitely it's manageable. But when you think about doing the MBA, it is a commitment. It's not any subject, a master degree online, but it is a huge commitment. So just need to make sure that, one, you need to balance everything with your life, your work and study, and 2, also need to make sure that you don't overload yourself.
Thank you for that. Now, I think that really sort of also touches on our next question from Masara. And I know that you're based in Tokyo, and I'm very much looking forward to actually meeting you in person later on this year. Masara, I haven't told you that yet, but we are going to meet in person. That Masara has asked, can you give us an example of typical weekday and weekend on how much hours you spend for learning? For example, you learn two hours from 8 to 10 p.m. every weekday. Do you learn 6 hours on Saturday, etc.? Now, Simon's just shared his experience in that, and that is, I mean, you've got, 2 subjects you're taking on this semester, Simon, is that correct? Yeah. I want to contrast that model in terms of the hours spent with Hannah's experience, because Hannah is pretty much a full-time student. She's taken sabbatical from her professional work. So, Hannah, would you like to share how you've actually structured your learning workload?
So I think everybody knows that they work better in morning or afternoon. For me, I work better in the morning, so I will spend most of my morning time to watch videos and make my own notes, because that's when I'm most creative and can absorb a lot of information. And the afternoon, evening, I will spend time on reading and even talking to people. So for example, even for project works, most of my project involves the company. I will actually look up on LinkedIn and talk to someone from the company as well. So I make the time to talk to people and engage in the industry, because I think this is a crucial part of learning. So I still have a lot of time for my family. Actually, I organize trips for my family, and I also manage my side projects to earn my living when I'm still on this Global MBA program. So life will be as beautiful as you want it to be. Just be organized, as Christy had said. And most importantly, know how much time you can devote to learning so you don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I mean, I think that last point about balance, I mean, whilst, everyone understands the intense sprint offering that we have, and the thing is about expectations management. I mean, we explain to our students right up front that this is what the model is. We have 6 terms per calendar year. Each term is made up of 6 weeks in terms of learning outcomes, and it is intense. But we don't mince our words about that. And so when we expect to start from day one, we say start from day one. There's no easing into it. It's a full-on run as soon as we start. And so we don't say that lightly, because that's the actual case. If you think otherwise, then perhaps you might want to consider another program. And I'll be very upfront in saying that. So just as long as those expectations are managed and are clear up front, then I don't think that anyone loses out here. One of the other points that I'd like to mention is about the students can expect a very much of a curated approach to our learning. And so the material that is presented before you is a collection of the best again, we haven't got much room to hide within a 6-week content delivery. And so we can actually deliver 13 weeks in terms of a semester, which is the usual load, but our job is much harder in actually making sure that what we present in that 6 weeks is the essence of what you need to understand and what is actually going to hit on those learning outcomes. Remember, we're a regulated, accredited business school, and so therefore we've got to actually comply. What we teach, what we put in our program, that assurance of learning has to be there. So I think you need to keep that in mind as well. I wonder if there are any other comments or questions from the panel of anything that we've discussed so far.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. There's no sugarcoating it. It is a sacrifice. And in terms of the hours per week, one of the questions was, do you prefer to do it a little bit per night, 2 hours per night, or a lot on a Saturday or a Sunday? I prefer to lump the study on a weekend and try to knock it over then. But as you said, Lan, if it's not like a 13-week term or semester where the first 2 weeks are a joke, basically. If you fall behind from the first week, it will be very, very hard to catch up because you should be, frankly, well and truly into your assignment by then. So yeah, no sugarcoating it. But if you're consistent and you, as Simon said, like do the videos in public transport, for example, it's definitely achievable. So 2 subjects is achievable working a difficult full-time job if you're organised.
I mean, you're doing that. That's your life at the moment, right? You're managing it okay.
Yeah.
You're still having some life, I hope.
Yeah, some life, absolutely. But when assignments are due, you're up to midnight, and it's the sacrifice.
It's swatting it out. That's an Australian colloquialism for those of you who aren't familiar with the term SWAT, meaning that you just drop everything and study to deliver the goods. Hannah, have you got any final comments or questions?
Not at the moment.
No, all good. Okay. And how about Christy? Any final comments?
I think just when taking this on, you need to think about what works for you. You know, as Hannah said, you know inherently when you are probably at your best and performing at your best, and so whether that's breaking it down into each evening, I'm going to do X amount of study, or I'm going to spend all day Sunday, or kind of how it's going to fit in your life, and I think don't underestimate the power of just being really organised. Like I went to the extent of, sending my husband meeting requests on the nights that I expect him to cook dinner for me, because I'm like, I'm going to be out, for 3 hours studying, and I just, I don't care what you cook, just make it happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. Get the family part of it, because it's actually a commitment that their family is undertaking as well, right? I noticed that there are a couple of other questions that I'd like to get to as well. I just wanted to touch on one point here that we haven't covered at this point, and that is the networking opportunities. Now, clearly we're networking here. Hannah made a point about networking with her LinkedIn contacts as well. I'm going to throw in one extra dimension, and that is what we call local meetups. And so whilst this is a digital program, whilst this is delivered 100% online, there are opportunities for us to have local meetups. Indeed, this is a global program. And so what do we mean by that? And I call it a layer of augmented services. And so we as faculty travel for conferences, there's myself and there's 24 other faculty members that are going to be delivering the material with the Global MBA, and all of us travel for conferences, etc. And we'll be meeting up and optimizing every interaction with meeting up with students, with organising local meetups in key markets so that you understand a bit more, have an insight into what's going on, an opportunity to meet other cohort members, students, an opportunity to meet our wider network. So for example, there's a big trip coming up, and in Singapore, we have partners with multiple people out there. We've got invitations to Facebook, which we're taking some students to attend. Christy's going to attend that meeting with us. We've got a fairly significant range of different symposiums, and in each of those things, we've got opportunities to meet with students in local meetup arrangements. So that's another layer for you to consider. Let's turn now to some of these questions here. Let's work from the bottom up. Byron, and we've got the remaining 5 minutes, and we can sort of head to these questions. What are your different methods for paying for the program? perhaps I can address this one, and I'd like your insight too as a student, by the way, but you're paying by unit, so per unit. The total cost, there's 24 units in the Global MBA, so the total cost is Australian dollars, 33,000, but you're paying per unit enrolment, and that looks like 1375 each unit. What do you think about that ability to pay per unit? I'm going to start with you, Michael.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think the ability to pay per unit basically means you're not locked into something that might not suit you.
Yeah.
So by doing one or two initially, if it isn't for you, the risk is significantly reduced, as opposed to signing up to a big course or worse, going overseas and not realizing it's for you. So for me, it lowered the risk profile of doing the program. But yeah, it does mean that if you defer it or wait, take a break for a period, that's, yeah, it's not going to cost you to do so.
Yeah.
So I like the per unit costing structure.
It's staggered, and I think you're right, the risk mitigation is there. Just another question is, what type of assessments do we do, and how do we know that it is the work of the student if it is online? And so the heart of that question relates to plagiarism, okay? So we, like any program that we have a number of different plagiarism detectors. Plagiarism is simply cheating. We do not tolerate cheating in any forms, and so all submissions are through a plagiarism detector. So that does assure to some degree that the work is there. We can also triangulate in terms of the students' work. If they have outsourced it, we can look back at their level of contributions, both verbally in interactions through the weekly webinars and also through the discussion forums. So, there are a number of mechanisms that we use to triangulate if we are suspicious of a particular submission. So hopefully that addresses that question there. Let's move on to that next question now. I know we're running out of time, so I'm doing our best to get through them. Do we get a certificate for each unit? No, you don't get a certificate for each unit. If you enroll in the Global MBA, if you meet the direct entry requirements and you're enrolled in the degree, your degree that you're enrolled in is a Global Master of Business Administration or Global MBA. You're on your testama, on your degree, it will read Global Master of Business Administration. There's no reference to online or Coursera. It is a certificate, a degree rather than a certificate that is issued by Macquarie University, so as your provider. I guess the question that you may be wanting to ask or to dive into is we talk about a stackable model behind it. And so there's, obviously Coursera offers an open model or MOOC model there, which you can actually subscribe to. And if you complete the open courses there, you will be issued with a digital certificate. It's co-branded between Coursera and Macquarie. It is a non-award digital certificate. I will be clear. The only award or qualification that you will be receiving from Macquarie University is if you are enrolled in the degree. Okay, I think we've reached the end of it. Now, I want to circle back to Simon and give him the final right to make some final comments or observations. So, Simon?
Yeah, sorry, Lan, I just saw one question. I think I might just address this live quickly. So in terms of credit from previous studies, so personally, I'm a qualified chartered accountant. So I got my graduate diploma of chartered accounting, so which is a postgraduate level certificate. So I do have 2 credits exemption from this program. So that's pretty good for me. To extend that flexibility I was talking about before. So we have 24 subjects, but depends on your personal experience, you might get a few exemptions. So very likely you can finish the whole program within 3 years. So that's probably one observation I want to point out as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So RPL, which is an acronym, we live in a world of acronyms. RPL stands for Recognised Prior Learning. That question that was submitted there in reference to your previous completion of something from the AICD, yes, we will look into that on a case-by-case basis. But look, I'd like to, now it's like sort of 45 minutes into the webinar. I know we sort of said about 30 minutes, so my apologies for extending it for 15 minutes. But I really do hope that you found some value in listening and to our student experiences. Thank you very much for attending live. It will be recorded for your benefit as well. And thank you very much to Michael, to Christy, to Hannah and to Simon for devoting your time and sharing your experience with us. It's been very gratefully received. So thank you very much. Thank you and good afternoon.